Hi, I'm Maggie Kimbrell, content editor of American Whiskey Magazine. I'm here in Louisville, Kentucky at the Angels Envy Distillery, and I'm about to go on a tour with Master Distiller Owen Martin. So Owen, I really love this visual representation of Angels Envy's bourbon mash bill. Tell me about the mash bill.
Yeah, gotta love a good educational tool.
Absolutely.
So yeah, this is our mash bill in visual form. 72% corn, 18% rye, 10% malted barley. This is a grain bill that our founder, Lincoln Henderson, worked with for decades and decades and developed at his prior distilleries. So we continue to use it and mash it and mill it and ferment it and distill it to today.
Perfect. And so this is a pretty typical Kentucky bourbon mash bill, right?
Absolutely. So day in, day out, we still produce the same bourbon recipe. We'll do some R&D here and there, but This is the engine of the operation.
So Owen, tell us a little bit about cooking. Obviously, you mill the grain and you don't just throw it in with some yeast. What do you do first?
Yeah. So right behind us through the sight glass, you can see the corn being brought up to temperature. So because of the structure of that, we have to gelatinize to get the starch into the liquid, unlike malted barley or rye.
Sure.
So we actually heat it up past 200 degrees. At that point, then we can bring it down, add the rye, add the barley. We need to add the barley at a very specific temperature because that's going to actually convert that starch into sugar to allow the yeast to then make alcohol.
To do its job.
And then, yes, and exactly the main difference between American whiskey production other than the grain is that we actually don't remove the liquid off the grain. So with an all barley mash, you actually strain it off the way you'd make a beer. But we're going to do the mashing on the grain, the fermenting on the grain, and the distilling on the grain. So really the whole way through, the grain is still with the liquid and everything else.
So tell us about what's going on in here.
So visually, this fermentation is just getting going. We'll ferment about 2 to 3 days, depending, and hit just under 10% alcohol. So during that time, we're creating some of that flavor. The pH is dropping, and we're looking for a level of sourness that's going to indicate the actual spirit will be sweeter.
So speaking of flavor, what are some of the flavors that you're looking to pull out of this?
Yeah, so from the grain itself, we're looking cornbread, a little bit of spice from the rye. Then in addition to that, we want all the fermentation character as well. So some of the fruity and floral esters that the yeast itself is going to develop.
And what is the proof going to be when this is done?
So this will be about 10% ABV, so 20 proof, I guess. And then we'll run it through the still at that point.
Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video. This is just a quick message to tell you a little bit about the Bourbon Annual, the coffee table publication from the team behind American Whiskey Magazine. Each annual edition includes a selection of our favourite articles about bourbon from the past year, and over 50 blind tasting reviews to help you choose your next bottle. The Bourbon Annual is the perfect year in review for whiskey enthusiasts who want to bring themselves up to date with the latest developments at American distilleries, and newcomers wanting a crash course in everything bourbon. To get a copy, follow the link in the description below to order yours today. Enjoy!
So Owen, tell me a little bit about the differences between a pot still and a column still.
Yeah, so with Scotch or Irish single malt production, it's pot still, and by that it's a batch distillation process. So one batch is distilled, then moved to the other still, distilled, and on. For American whiskey production, it's predominantly continuous distillation. So we have what's called a beer well where we pump the fermenters into, and that's always topped up. And so that's topped up while the still pulls it down, and the mash is constantly fed into the still and distilled off. We do kind of a double distillation in the sense that we have a doubler. So that's almost like a pot still. That's on the second stage after the column. But that doubler, the liquid level in that's regulated, and so it never fills up fully, and it's always able to distill off as well. And that way we're able to operate 24/7, constantly pumping mash into the still.
Perfect.
And constantly pulling high wines off the doubler.
And what proof does it reach by the time it's done with this process?
Yeah, so 125 proof off the still, column still, and then about 138 proof off the doubler.
And then what are you barreling at?
So we then dilute it down under the legal limit. In the US, you can't barrel any higher than 125 proof for bourbon. And so we go just under that to about 124.7 or 0.8.
And I understand that here on the Spirit Safe, you have a little bit of an Easter egg.
Oh,
Would you like to show people that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Louisville Slugger manufacturing plant's just down the road. So as the cork to our spirit safe bottle. It's actually the end of a Louisville Slugger vat.
I love it. That's great. So we've got a couple of different kinds of barrels behind us here. Why don't you tell us what they are and the differences?
Yeah. So these are new charred American oak barrels right behind us. That is the primary maturation vessel for all bourbon and rye by law. So we'll use those once and then send them abroad or to breweries or whatever. But the port barrels right behind you are more of our hallmark finishing barrels. So you can actually see a few different types here. You can see the wine staining around the belly, the chestnut hoops at the top and bottom. And so we'll finish some 3 to 6 months for our flagship and then multiple years for our special releases. And you can actually see with the date crossed out on that one, it just got dumped for our special release cask strength. And now we got a second fill on it for probably our single barrel program or maybe our standard release as well.
So we're here in Billy Goat Strut Alley, which has some really interesting Louisville history. Decades before Churchill Downs and the Kentucky Derby, people used to race goats in this alley. What are you using it for now?
Yeah, so we've bricked the alley up. It's now a fire controlled area, and this is where we do all the blending. So both dumping and blending the bourbon barrels that get filled into the port, as well as the port barrels that then make up our flagship release and our cask release.
And now the best part of the tour. Why don't you tell us what we're going to try?
Sure. So this is our flagship product, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey finished in ruby port wine casks.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That is some delicious whiskey.
Thank you.
Thank you for going on this tour of Angels Envy with us. We hope you enjoyed it. If you think you're going to be here, tell us all about your trip and leave a comment below and tell us if you'd like to learn more about this distillery the next time we do this, or if there are other questions that you have that we could forward on to Owen Martin at Angels Envy. Cheers.